It was a quiet evening in the small town where the sun set slowly behind the hills, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. But inside a modest little house on the edge of the town, a storm was brewing. An elderly woman, her hair streaked silver with time and her hands trembling with age, clutched a heavy basket of laundry close to her chest. She tried her best to keep up with the chores, but her body, frail and tired, could no longer match the demands of her heart. She whispered softly, almost to herself but loud enough for someone in the other room to hear, "My arms are tired." The words carried not just physical exhaustion but years of silent sacrifice. In the kitchen stood a young woman, her son's fiancée, dressed neatly, scrolling through her phone with a look of annoyance. The old woman's plea was not met with sympathy, but with irritation. "Then don't carry it. Leave it there," she snapped, not even looking up. For a moment the old woman froze, her eyes filling with tears. It wasn't the weight of the basket that broke her. It was the coldness in those words. For all her life, she had carried not just baskets of laundry but the weight of struggles, raising her son alone after her husband died young. She had carried bills unpaid, nights of hunger, and endless work just to see her son smile. And now, as she stood pleading for a little help, her arms trembled not just with age, but with heartbreak. What neither of them noticed was that outside, a sleek black car had pulled up quietly. The door opened, and a tall man stepped out. A man in his mid-30s with sharp eyes, wearing a tailored suit. He was the elderly woman's son, but now he wasn't just her boy anymore. He was a self-made millionaire, a man whose name was whispered with admiration in business circles. He had returned unannounced, wanting to surprise his mother and meet his bride, to be in her natural environment before the wedding. What he walked into, however, was something that made his chest tighten and his fists clench. From the doorway he heard his mother's plea, those fragile, desperate words, "My arms are tired." His heart sank. For a second, he didn't move. The silence in the room was broken only by the fiancé's dismissive reply. The son, who had always admired his mother's resilience, who had built his empire inspired by her sacrifices, felt an anger burn inside him like never before. He had given this woman, his fiancée, his trust, his future, his name. But in her reaction to his mother's weakness, he saw a truth too sharp to ignore. He rushed in without a word, snatching the basket from his mother's frail hands and setting it gently on the table. Then he took his mother's trembling fingers into his palms, kissing them softly. "Mom, you don't have to carry anything anymore. Not when I'm here." Tears slid down her cheeks because for years she had hidden her struggles from him, never wanting to burden her son. She thought her strength was the only gift she could keep giving. But the moment was broken when his fiancée rolled her eyes. "It's just laundry," she muttered. "You're making such a scene." The room turned cold. The son slowly turned his gaze toward her, his expression unreadable but his silence louder than words. The fiancée shifted uncomfortably but tried to cover it with arrogance. "I mean, she should be resting, sure, but why make everything so dramatic?" The millionaire's jaw tightened. "Dramatic," he repeated softly. "Do you know what drama is? Drama is when a woman works 2 jobs to feed her child after her husband dies. Drama is when that same woman goes hungry so her son can have enough to eat. Drama is when her arms grow tired from carrying a future that was never hers to carry, yet she does it anyway for love." The fiancée had no response. The mother, however, shook her head quickly. "Son, don't speak harshly. I don't want to cause trouble." Her instinct was always to protect, even now, when she was the one who needed protection most. But the son's eyes softened only when they returned to his mother. He pulled a chair for her, guided her down gently, and said, "Mom, you will never again have to say your arms are tired. Not while I live. That's my promise." The 2 challenges they faced that night, after the fiancée left in anger, slamming the door behind her, the son and mother sat together for hours. She confessed the truth she had hidden, her struggles in the small house, her loneliness, her deteriorating health, and the silent endurance she thought was her duty. The son listened, guilt eating him alive. He had been so consumed in building his empire that he had believed providing money was enough. But money didn't carry laundry baskets. Money didn't ease aching joints. Money didn't sit beside an elderly woman at night when the silence became unbearable. The challenge before him was not business, not success, but family. How could he rebuild the years he had lost? How could he show his mother that she wasn't a burden? but the very reason he had survived. And another challenge weighed heavily on him, his fiancée. Was this the woman he wanted to entrust with his mother's care, his future children's upbringing, his home? The red flags that night forced him to confront a truth he had ignored. Love without compassion is hollow. Wealth without empathy is dangerous. The days that followed were filled with change. The son moved his mother into his mansion, not to impress her with luxury, but to finally give her the rest she deserved. He hired caretakers, but more importantly, he took time himself to be with her, reading to her, walking with her, learning recipes from her, laughing at old memories. Slowly, her tired arms found peace not in stillness, but in being held, supported, and cherished. The fiancé tried to return, apologizing, insisting she had been misunderstood. But by then, the son had clarity. If you cannot honor my mother, he told her, then you cannot walk beside me. Because the woman I marry must have a heart big enough to love not just me, but the one who gave me life. With that, he ended the engagement. It wasn't easy, but it was right. To resolution and inspiring message. Months later, the old woman stood at a grand celebration. Not a wedding this time, but a foundation launch, her son's tribute to her. It was called the Tired Arms Foundation, built to support elderly single mothers and widows, to give them rest and dignity in their later years. She watched as her son spoke to the crowd, his voice breaking with emotion. My mother's arms grew tired from carrying me through life, but her love never did. This foundation is my way of making sure no other mother has to whisper those words alone. No woman should suffer in silence. No heart that sacrifices so much should ever feel forgotten. The hall erupted in applause, but for the elderly woman, none of it mattered more than the warmth in her son's eyes. She no longer felt like a burden. She felt like the greatest blessing. And in that moment, she realized, sometimes life takes everything from you, but if you hold on long enough, love finds its way back. Closing call to action for YouTube video. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me what part moved you the most. Your words matter. And if you believe in kindness, family, and never letting those we love feel forgotten, then please support my channel. Be kind always, by subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Together, let's spread stories that remind the world. Compassion is the greatest wealth.